Well, about 2 minutes or something. Hello, Simran and Shushant. We'll give a couple minutes for sorry, I was just getting out of another class. So anyway, we're still a couple of minutes before 2, so we'll give it a few minutes and we'll get started. Hope everybody is doing well and enjoying your Friday. Just going to wait a couple of minutes for a few more people to link in and then we'll go. All right, I'm just getting our first activity marshaled up, so we'll get started in about 1 minute. All right, we're up to about, actually, I guess we're about ready to get started. All right, welcome everybody. Let me just kick out your first activity here. Hang on. All right, let's get started. So welcome, my name is Peter Sigurdsson. I'm going to be leading us through our investigation of Java over the next couple of months, right? So we have a 14-week class, and hopefully everybody had a chance to see my introductory material, and you watched the video and you read through the course outline and so on. So I guess the good way to get started is let's jump right into it, and let's write a simple Java program to just get ourselves oriented and make sure we have all the tools set up. Now, one thing we're going to be doing here, and I will try as much as possible to type things down as well as talk about them, so people can, because sometimes online it's a little bit more complicated to keep things organized. So let's start by making a class journal, a Google Docs class journal document. And in this way, we can organize our thinking, and later when you want to review for your tests and stuff, you'll have an exact list of points of all the stuff we did. So I'm going to make that now, and then I will put the link to it over in your Google Classroom. By the way, I think everybody has their mic available, right? So you've all keeping yourself locally muted, which is great because I'm not hearing any chatter. If you want, you can type, comment, and I'm recording this session, by the way, as well, and I will push up the class recording within within a few hours after the class. So if you want to go back and review anything from the recording, you can go and do that. And if you have any questions, you can type in the chat box, or you can just open your mic and ask question by talking. All right, so let's go and get our class journal set up first, since we're going to be using that for everything else. All right. Whoops, I think I'm in my personal account, not my professor account. Hang on. Okay, let's try this again. All right, that's better. $11.05, where did it go? Hang on, guys, just getting our class journal set up here. Hang on. 1105 G2 Java. Oh, there, I guess it didn't take before. All right, so this is our class journal, and I'm going to try and write down things as well as talk about them. That'll help everybody keep mentally focused. And later on, you can go and review and see all the things we did. And if you missed anything, well, you can read the instructions here and go and redo it later. All right, let's start by putting a link to this in Google Classroom so people can get to it. And then I will lead us through our first activity, which is to write our first simple Java program. If you do not have the stuff you need on your laptop to write Java, which is the JDK, then I will guide us through setting that up. That should take our first hour of class. And then I'll, we'll go through the course outline, and then we'll just start working on the topics of the course. So that's what we're going to be doing here. All right, so first of all, let's make this viewable by everybody. Anybody with the link can view. All right, let's go and drop this over here. Right, so that's your Moodle page, as you're familiar with. So we'll say class journal. Ah, yes, this thing about permissions. All right, so I won't attach it. I'll just have the link there. All right, guys. So, and ladies, keep your eye on that document, right? We're going to be adding stuff to there all the time, so keep that handy. And now that we have that, I'm going to be using this to organize our life, at least in connection with this class. Oops, put that away. So day one, which is today, which is September 9th. So activity one, write the simple Java program. And by the way, I shared a video, right, in our hang on. Yeah. So in our Moodle page for our class, like the video of what I'm about to do is there if you want to go and watch it again later, right? So write the simplest Java program. There's a video that covers this as well. And some of our other learning outcomes for today. So day one learning outcomes are going to be to get ourselves set up, right? So by the end of today's class, everybody should be set up in terms of having the JDK, Java Development Kit, so you too can write Java programs. All right, so first of all, I'm just going to do a demonstration, right? In the next activity will be interactive, and I'll do a code along. I'll ask everybody to follow along with me. But for right now, just for the first initial step, you can just sit and watch, right? You don't have to follow along just yet. And next activity will be to install the Java Development Kit JDK. Now, I'm going to be doing this. We're going to have two ways of writing Java. Here's some of the topics we're going to be talking about here. So writing Java programs. I don't want a template. I just want a simple table. Anyway. It can be as simple as just having a simple text editor, which I'm going to be demonstrating using Sublime, which you can download for free. It's a pretty nice text editor. As well as we also need what's called the Java Development Kit. And I will illustrate that gives us the ability to compile our source code into executable code, right? If these terms are new to you and you're not really too sure what I'm talking about, then just hang around and watch me, and soon you'll be able to do it as well. So we need a text editor to write some source code. And we also need a compiler. That's the JDK, Java Development Kit, freely available from the, who owns Java now? It used to be Sun, now it's Oracle. So we can go to Oracle and download it. So the compiler turns source code into so-called executable code that can execute on your CPU. And that's basically all you need. Now, some additional ways of making it fancy, right? So some additional items that are coming later. I'm going to be demonstrating the use of more advanced, what are called IDEs, integrated development environment. And I'm going to be using Eclipse here. There's other ones. There's NetBeans and Visual Studio Code. And I don't know, there's probably like 3,000 different Java development environments out there. I like Eclipse because it's very pure and simple, and it gives us everything we need and nothing we don't need. And it gives us the major thing I like about Eclipse. It has a very nice visual debugger. So as we start writing slightly more complicated Java, the ability to actually look into the computer, into the memory, and see what's going on with the debugger, that's going to be pretty cool. And also, maybe next week or something, I will ask you to install SQLite, which is a database, because it's nice to be able to persist or store values from our program into an external database. Because imagine you have a certain program like a word processor and you write your resume, And then, next week you come back, you turn it on again, and now your resume is gone. You can't find it. You'd be pretty unhappy. So normally in a program, we have what are called volatile variables. Ladies, you might have had the experience that you leave the lid off your nail polish remover bottle, and then, you come back later, all the nail polish is gone. So, because it evaporated away because it's volatile. So that's the situation here, right? The variables in a, sorry, I'm just making sure our meeting is okay. Yeah. The variables in our Java program are what are called volatile. So when the program ends, then everything goes away. You don't have it for later. And that might be kind of a problem if there was some important data you were counting on having. So for that reason, we're going to see how we can persist or store values from our program out to an external database and then retrieve them back in later. So to retrieve them back the next time we fire up the program and run it. All right, guys. So right now, I promised you that I was going to show you how to write a simple Java program using a simple text editor and a simple compiler. So here is our recipe. Now I'm going to try and give you very simple sets of procedures. So when you have an assignment or you have, some final exam, maybe I'll ask you to do some practical coding for final exam. You're going to have a very simple set of lists of how we do this work. And I'm keeping my eye on the chat box. And as soon as we get to something that you're not totally sure about it, just either ask a question by talking. I have a very nice headset. I'll hear you, no problem. Or you can type your comments in the chat box, right? Or you can send me an email. I guess if you want to do it that way, that would work as well. So let's get to work now and let's start actually making our Java code work. Let's do that now together. So text editor could be Notepad. It could be whatever you want. My suggestion is use professional tools, right? If you can get good tools for free, why not? So therefore, Sublime text editor, you can go and download it from here. Yeah, sublimetext.com. Good. This is what I will be using. It doesn't have any particularly amazing features, right? You could just use Notepad or something, just something I like. If you like something else, then go and get it. And if you want, while I'm doing this demonstration, you could actually go and start pulling it down. Just dump that into the chat box. Now, the other thing we need is what's called a Java development kit. And I will show you what that is now. I'll demonstrate how to do this. So the simplest way you can tell whether you have Java installed or not is to go to a command prompt, and that's going to be another thing we will be using here. So I probably have some Mac users in the class, and you can start your command prompt with Control spacebar to start Spotlight, and then just type terminal. Or my Windows users, you can go to your Cortana Start button, right-click, and then you can say, whoops, hang on here. So go to Cortana and type PowerShell. And then you can type and right-click and say run as administrator. There are certain reasons why that's a little bit beneficial comparing to just being a regular user. So you're going to say run as administrator. It's going to go back and check that our meeting is still going okay. Yeah, everything's okay. So now I have my terminal, either my Mac or my Windows terminal over here. Now pay careful attention. All you're going to do is type Java. That's it, just Java and enter. And then you see some stuff like that. What exactly that means, don't really care right now. Just the fact that you're seeing that is what we want. If you got some message like unrecognized command, that would be bad. That means you do not have Java installed and you will need to install it. You could make it slightly more sophisticated by saying Java version, and that would tell you the version of Java you have there. So let's drop that into your class journal as a little reminder. Right, so you can do that little test right now. Check if you have Java installed. By opening a command prompt and typing Java at the command prompt. Now, I used to, when I was teaching online, I used to ask student questions like, is this working or do you have this? And I found out nobody ever answered me, so it was tiring. So if you have questions or if you want more help, just reach out. So type here in chat or ask the question, with your mic. But otherwise, unless nobody comes back to me and says, Peter, I need more help, or Peter, can you say more on how to do that? Unless I kind of get some requests, I'm basically going to assume everybody is more or less okay. And this is very simple stuff anyway. Nobody ever really has too much problems on this. So let's carry on now. So how do I make my first program? Well, I have to create a directory, and maybe this is stuff you've done before and maybe you have not done it before, but certain basic computer skills are very important. If you were a secretary in a doctor's office typing letters for the patients, you still need to know basic things like working with directories. And everything I'm saying now is exactly the same between Windows and Mac. So let's go and capture some notes here in our journal. So recipe for writing the simple Java program. Recipe 1, writing the simple Java program. So step 1, open a command prompt, right? Just the way I demonstrated, open a command prompt. If you need to see it again, let me know. And you can type Java just to make sure that your Java environment is available correctly. Now, step 2, we're going to have to make a directory, which is a location to put our source code. Right, so type cd \. So change directory to the root, that means. And then type mkdir, make directory, and then give your directory a name, such as Java programs, and then type cd for change directory, Java programs. I will demonstrate that now, pay attention. In fact, I'm even going to make a little screencast video so you can go and watch my video later. So let's turn on the video recorder here. So step one, open command prompt. Step two, just verify that Java is available. There it is. Step three, we said type cd space / to go back to the root of your file system. And now let's make a directory called Java programs. I already have that directory, in fact, so in my case, it's not working, but for you, it is going to work. And then you change into that directory. So you say cd Java programs. And we now see from our command prompt that we're in that directory. And if you want to see what you have there, you can type dir and you won't have anything, but I have a couple of programs there. So anyway, that's how we get ourselves set up. That's step one. Now, step two is, and I'm still recording this, so you can watch my recording later. So let's go back to our class journal. So step two, turn on your text editor, right? Use Sublime or whatever text editor you like to create a file. And watch now in the video here, I'm going to show you how to do this. So I'm going to go in Windows to my Cortana command key. In Mac, I'm just going to press Control Spacebar. And Mac, I think, has a simple text editor called TextEdit. Unless you installed Sublime, then type Sublime. Anyway, go and get your text editor up and going. Oh, I have a chat comment coming in. Is it mandatory to make directory in C drive? No, Shushant, no, nothing is mandatory. You can go wherever you like, type of thing, right? So any directory is good. But your files, right? Because a Java program is a file, just like a Word document is a file. Your files must go in some directory somewhere. Right? That they can't be nowhere, they have to be somewhere. And how you choose to do that, totally up to you. Yeah. So just now, if you watch my video on writing the simplest Java program, I actually talk more about that as well. So, right, you can go and watch that before next class, but no, just whatever you could actually have put it in the default directory, by the way, Windows System 32. The only thing I will say about directory names is when you're working on something more complicated like the course project, you probably want to keep your files organized, because I have gotten emails from students the night before the project is due. They say, oh, I can't remember which directory my files are in. I say, well, you've got a problem. You better find them, because your project is due tomorrow. So just stay organized and know where your stuff is what I'm saying. All right, so I have a couple of other things open here from other classes, a couple of other tabs in my directory, so I'm going to go and close them out now. And so here I just have a blank file, right? Nothing's going on with it. So I'm going to go and save it. But there's a couple of important things we need to be aware of. This is just a fact about life. Your Java file, here, I'm going to go and type this up in your journal. So what do you name your file now? Well, Java, and now we're starting into our core Java because it sort of controls the naming of the file. In Java programs, we have something called classes. And exactly one class must be public. Why? for right now, I'm going to say just because that's the way it is. I'll give you a more intellectually satisfying answer later on. But here's the fact. Your file that your Java code goes into must be named the same as that public class. And if you don't do that, you'll get a compile error. So therefore, I'm going to do that. I'm going to say public class, and I can call it whatever I want. I'll call it, which is my dog's name, which is Peanut. And then I'm going to give the implementation of the class details in curly brackets. And that is the simplest Java program, right? It's not doing anything useful. Well, actually, no, it's not going to be satisfactory as a Java program. It's missing something. But anyway, let's save it. So what are we going to save this program as? Well, in my case, Peanut, because that's what my public class is named. So I'll say File, Save As. And I'll find my Java programs directory. And there I am. Now here I can call, and you see it already, Sublime, my text editor, is like taking the first line and trying to name it as that. So here I'm going to say save it as peanut.java. And I'm going to give it a linting, meaning I'm going to tell my editor that it's a Java file, because then I'll get color coding and I'll get sort of intelligent keyword completion and stuff. So that's why Sublime is better, for example, than Notepad, because a programmer's editor, and there's other ones, there's Notepad++ and TextPad and a bunch of other good free ones. But I'm going to specify to my editor that this is a Java program. And I'm going to say save now. And you see now I've got that's italic, and that's color coded. So my editor is starting to recognize what's going on. Now let's press the Alt Tab key and let's go back to our command prompt. There's my new file, Peanut. So how do I run this as a Java program? Well, and by the way, I have a PowerPoint which talks about this stuff in a lot of detail. So if you're the kind of learner who likes to see every step written down one after the other, we're going to do that in our class journal. Plus, we have it in our PowerPoint. But this is our very first Java program. So let's just see and observe how it works before we start making it too complicated. So I want to run Peanut as a Java program. How do I do that? Well, it's not too hard. I'm going to say Java C. So that means Java compile. And I'm going to specify the name of my source file and enter. Now, apparently nothing happened, but if I type dir again, I see I now have another file, which is my class file. So that's my bytecode file. That is the Java code class file that was created by compiling my source code. So how do we run that? Well, before I typed Java C, but now I'm just going to type Java, and I'm going to type the name of that file. And I forgot that I cannot have the .class part there. That's an odd message. I'm not sure why I'm getting that message. In fact, that message might be because it's saying dog. Oh, actually, no, because I see dog was something I did before on 2021. I should probably even erase those to avoid making myself confused. What I did here was peanut, right? So you see in my timestamp, those were things I did from a very earlier version of Java. In fact, I'm going to erase them to just not make that confusion again, because peanut is my dog. So when I saw dog, I thought that was the file I was compiling, but I made a mistake on that. And similarly, I'll get rid of orange because that was also something I did a very long time ago. All right, that's better. Now I have peanut here. So now I'm going to say Java C. Actually, I already did Java C. Now I'm just going to say Java, and I'm going to point my Java runtime engine at my peanut class file. So let's try that. Yeah. So in this case, actually, that was a mistake. You don't put the .class part, you just put Java and then peanut. But now pay attention to the error message I'm getting here. It is saying it's not finding a main method because it must have a main method, because that's something else we need to put in our simple program. So let's go and do that. So now here I'm going to say within my class, public, static, void, and I need to have a thing called main, a method name called main, and it needs to have parameters. And I know this is a lot of information, and I know this sounds very confusing, and I know you're sort of a little overwhelmed, but I'm just going to ask you to just type along with me. Even if you don't understand it, we don't need to understand it right now. I just want to show you the pattern of what it looks like first, and then we will go and do more complicated things to get some understanding. So here, we're going to find out that a Java class can contain methods. So here we have a method called main, right? So class can contain methods, and a public class must contain a main method. Why? Because there's a document called the Java language specification, and the Java language specification says all the things that are true about Java, and that's what it says. If you don't like it, go and invent your own programming language. You can do whatever you want with your own language. I know, because when we're in the classroom, students challenge me. They say, well, why is it like that? And my answer is because the people who invented Java, Ryan Gosling and his team over at Sun Microsystems, that's the way they set it up to be. All right, so now that we put the main method, let's see if that's going to work better. So now that I've made a change to my file, I need to recompile it. So let's go back to the command prompt. So I'm going to type Java C again, and I'm going to type peanut. And here I do need to put peanut.java. Good. Now, what did that do? See, that updated my class file, because on my computer, the time is 2:39. So you see my class file has now been updated. If I erase that class file, see, it's all gone now. But if I compile again, Java C for Java compile, peanut.java. Now it's regenerated another class file. Now, remember when we did that before, what happened? Well, we got an error message, a complaining message. Do you remember what it said? It said it did not find a main method, which it required to have. So therefore, we put the main method in. So let's try running it again now. So now, once again, we're going to say Java, not Javac, because Javac is compile, source code to bytecode file. Here, we're going to run the Java runtime engine on our class file of peanut. So press enter. Oh, I see. Now, I always make this mistake, actually. You see here, main has to be with lowercase m, and I made it uppercase m. Now, if you're using a fancy IDE like Eclipse, Eclipse would do all of this stuff for you, which is why I really think it's better when you're learning, you just use a simple text editor, because then you have to pay attention to that stuff by yourself. So now I have lowercase m for main, and I think the rest of this is all okay. So let's save again, and let's compile again, and let's run again. Now my program is running okay. It's not doing anything because the program doesn't do anything, but it's not giving compile error, and it is demonstrating the simplest possible Java program, right? So now I want everybody to be able to do this with me. So now I see I've gone from 35 participants down to 32 participants. So I guess some people are getting bored. My suggestion is, if you're finding this boring, if you don't really like to listen to me talk about this, send an email to the office and see if you can get your tuition money back. Because if you don't like to do something, there's no point to try and force yourself to do it. It'll be painful and life is too short. If you find this very interesting, then programming is your thing. I'm just thinking about the 3 students who just exited out of the class. I don't know what they imagined programming is. Maybe they thought I was going to do a singing and dancing show for 3 hours, but this is programming. Deal with it. It will be interesting if you choose to make it interesting. All right, so let's go back now. So here's our simple program. Let's go and put it in our Google Docs, our journal. I don't know why there's some like little space here that's taking up space. I can't delete it. But anyway, can I put a text box in here? No, anyway. So I'm just going to put the source code for our first program, which is actually peanut.java. Now, I'm not sure if you followed along with me and got this to run or not, but the next thing we need to do, actually, let me go and do a little poll here in our meeting. I think there's a way to do a poll inside Zoom. I thought so. I've never done it, but I've seen it. No, maybe I made a mistake and there isn't a way to do it. All I want is a simple poll. Why is that so complicated? I guess there is no way to do polling. I don't know why I thought there was, but anyway. All right, so I want everybody to type in the chat box. Actually, no, there's no point because I already know most of you don't have it. So now we will see how to install the JDK. The Java compiler, basically. Which is the Java C program, and also the Java runtime, which is just Java. And I'm pretty sure I have that in my PowerPoint. So let's go and check the PowerPoint. I think I uploaded it a few days ago. Yeah, there's a video showing the simple Java. Oh, here, learning Java. There we go. Hang on, I just want to open it locally on my own computer, not through Google Drive. Okay, I guess I don't have any slides on this, so just pay attention. So to install Java on your computer, you do the following activities. I'm just going back to the journal. I don't know. Oh, there it is. Right, so how to install Java Development Kit. There it is, oracle.com. So go to this URL. If you need Java, maybe you already have it, but if you need to install Java, and then once you're there, just find Java for your environment. So if you're on Mac or Windows, you can get the latest one. That's okay. Just get Java version 17. So you could get Windows x64 installer. That'd probably be okay. So spend a few minutes now. I'm going to give us a little break as well, but I want everybody to find the Java installable for your computer and run it, right? So download that exe file and run it and let it install Java. And hopefully you'll be finished by the time we get back. If not, just let it run so you can keep doing the labs. When we come back from our break, I will go and review the course outline and do all the start of class stuff, but I just wanted to get us started with going on some programming. Anyway, it's now 2:50. Let's give it a break till 3:10. And then when we come back, we'll review the course outline. But do install Java if you don't have it yet. All right, guys, go and take your break. I'll be back in 20 minutes. All right, guys, we'll be picking it up again in 10 minutes. we'll be getting started in 1 minute. So everything I'm showing you now is in this video. So, and I realize, right, I've been doing this for a long time. I realize some people actually want to learn the material. Other people just want to get a college diploma for their PR, their permanent residence. And they actually, think it's kind of cool if they can slide through a class without learning anything. So I'm speaking to the people who actually want to learn this stuff. If you want to learn it, then I want to teach it to you. And if you just want to slide through, well, that's up to you. If you're clever enough to get a good enough mark on the final exam, then good on you. But if you actually want to learn this stuff, I'm putting a lot of things in place here to help you out. So let's go and get organized and see how we're making out. Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. So, because life is too short to spend time doing things you don't want to do, right? If programming is something you love and you really get excited about it, it's a very well-paying job, right? I was a nobody from nowhere. I didn't have big name parents. I knew people at university whose father was, the president of this big company and whose mother was, from a big socially influential family. And when they needed to go out and get their jobs, mom and dad could just make a few phone calls and hook them up. I never had that. My father was a diesel mechanic for intercity truck lines. He fixed trucks and he was a mechanic. And my mother was a typist for a secretary for the Ontario government. So I kind of had to pull myself up, right? I didn't have anybody, any big name family members to go and make any connections for me. But I always liked programming and I had good luck that I was just emerging into I was a young 22-year-old guy when I graduated with my electrical engineering degree. And I was interested in software and computers, and that was just emerging, right? They were just exploding in terms of popularity. So it worked out well. And I think that computers are really your big opportunity if you want to get into the workplace, right? You want to sort of get into a good paying job and with something that has opportunities to work up to senior management. I think getting good at information systems is the way to go. But it's not for the faint of heart, right? If you think you can just slide through without doing the work, I'm here to tell you that that's not really the case. If you are here to do the work, then I can help you to kind of, maximize doing that. Now, another thing that I have here for you, by the way, college does not pay for any of these things. Everything you're seeing here, all of these videos, all of the PowerPoints, all of everything that I'm doing, including other stuff I haven't even showed you yet, that's something I do on my own time, on my own dime. I pay for it. I don't get paid by the college to do it. So I'm doing it because I care about you and I want you to learn this stuff, right? So all I can do is really ask you to sort of take it seriously and pay attention. So anyway, this is something called a mind map, and I'll put the link there over in your Moodle page as well. So let's go and put that there before we forget. And I've got my YouTube channel. I have about 350 videos on math, programming, database, electronics, career search, many other subjects. So if you're curious to look for stuff that may help you with some of your other classes as well, I'm on YouTube as the professor. So I'm just going to call this the course visual learning roadmap because it's a visual mind mapping tool. Right, so that's our class journal. I'll also put it in your I lost it. Where did I put your Google Classroom? I'm going to open it again. I think I closed it. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I needed the one for college. Right, so course, visual learning whiteboard. All right, so what are we going to do now? Well, what have we done so far? And what do we have to do for the remainder of this class? Fortunately, we have a nice journal document to keep ourselves organized. So let's go and look at that because I could rip through this. And my big problem when I started teaching, I got feedback from the students. They said, Peter, you're just talking too fast and you're going too fast. And they said, well, we're just not really understanding you, right? So then I decided I'd try to just slow myself down, especially the first couple of classes. We're going to take it really slow. But if I'm going too fast, or if you're desiring to listen to me talk about certain topics more, well, you got to jump into the chat room and let me know. So this thing right here, this visual learning roadmap, I'm going to be appealing to it. You see, like you have a cookbook there with some recipes, and we're going to be using this to organize our journey through Java. Like we've already done recipe 1, right? So we talked about how to write the basic Java programming, a basic Java program. And now we're going to talk about certain other topics here. We're going to start going through our PowerPoint as well. So let's do all of that. Where did I put the PowerPoint? Ah, there it is. So all of this stuff is in your sorry guys, it's been a long day because I was teaching a class this morning that was a new class. We're just teaching for the first time, so my mind's like a little fuzzy, so just bear in mind if I'm not as fast as I should be. So anyway, here's our PowerPoint. So let's use this as a whiteboard and let's keep track of our learning topics. So how to write the simplest Java program? Well, we've done that, right? It's in the video as well. Set up our machines, you setting up your machine. So students set up their computers to write Java with JDK. I hope you've done it. If you have not done it, if you need my help to do it, send me an email, right? We'll work with you. We'll get it done. But that's something you should have by the end of today's class. With the JDK. Now, in terms of the editor, you can use Notepad, right? You don't need any fancy schmancy Sublime. I like Sublime. Maybe you don't like it. Anything that lets you have a text editor is good enough, right? You can use Notepad, no problem. I mean, it won't give you color coding and stuff, but it'll do the job. But mostly you need the Java development kit, so hopefully you've done that now. So now our next step is to start to understand the basic structural elements, the mechanics, right? The sort of structure and mechanics of writing a Java program. And we're talking about Java, but this is 99% applicable to every other programming language out there. So C++, Python, JavaScript, PHP, Haskell, Go. It's more the same than it's more similar than different. All right, so that's our current topic. So let's make another slide for that. Now, if you go through these slides, currently there's 88 slides, but there's a lot of duplication. So it's something I suggest maybe by next class, if you read through it, I think it would be a good idea to help reinforce your learning. So first thing to understand with any programming language anywhere in the world is we have two components, right? We have two elements to a programming language. We have control, flow of control. So we control the path of execution of the program. And the other aspect we have is controlling the data. So we have variables and variable assignments and types of data and so on, as we're going to see now. So let's make some simple examples now. Let's write a program that illustrates some basic flow control structures. So you might already be familiar, maybe some of you know a little bit of programming. We have branching, and we have looping, and we have reusable blocks of code. In the old days, reusable code blocks were referred to as functions, right? In the third generation programming paradigm languages, like C, for example, they were functions. And now in fifth generation programming paradigm, like Java and C++, we now call them methods. But the concept there, we can put code and reuse it in different contexts. So branching, looping, and reusable code blocks, as far as I've been able to determine, and maybe, someday somebody will tell me something I haven't thought about yet, but these are the only three that I'm aware of ways of controlling the flow of execution of a program. What is the flow of execution? Well, I will demonstrate that, so pay attention here. Now, controlling data and information. So this gets to the concept of variables and variable assignments. And also we have types, we have kinds of data. So we can have primitive data. Well, what's primitive? Numbers like 7, for example, the number 7. Can you take 7 apart and make it something simpler? Not really, no. So that's pretty primitive. And string, the char characters, for example, like the letter E. Can you make E any simpler? I don't believe you can, so we call that primitive. Now we can also have objects, right? We can have types. We can have another kind of data called type. For example, I could write a program to simulate the college enrollment system and see how students move around between classes, their classes here at school. So then I would make a type of data called a student, and that would be a class. I could have a type called enrollment. I could have a type called classroom and instructor and subject and different things there. So anyway, let's write some code to make ourselves understand this. So let's go back to our IDE now. And by the way, it's very common to write comments in your code, and comments are pretty good to help keep your thinking organized. And comments are with the double slash. So what I want to do right now, my current intention is I'm going to write a little computer program to add the numbers from 1 to 100. Oh, I also have to go over, since this is day 1, I have to go over the course outline and the evaluation timetable. Let's just finish this little program we're working now, and then we'll branch out. We'll put our programming aside for a few minutes and just review the course outline. But first of all, let's do this. It's pretty simple. So the first thing we need to understand, and if you go over here and look at my mind map, one of these recipes says that code needs to be contained in a method, right? You cannot have code just sort of floating around by itself in outer space. It has to be contained in a method. I must have put that here somewhere as a recipe. Yeah, actually, it's the first one, how to do object-oriented programming, recipe 0. All code must be contained in methods. And another recipe element we could write there, we could give more details on that. We could say, and by the way, all of this is going to be final exam questions as well. There are 2 kinds of things, and there are only 2 kinds of things that you can have in a class, right? 2 kinds of things we can put in a class. Meaning like a Java class or, C++ or any program language. We can put data fields, right? So we can put data in the form of fields, and we can put methods. Only 2 things you can ever have in any class, anywhere, anytime, ever. So that's pretty simple. I don't think programming is very complicated, because if I only have to keep track of 2 things, I think I can manage that. So let's see how that works. Now over here, I have a class which is called Peanut. And I guess I should probably write a method, because I already have the class, to add numbers. So it's a fact now, there's some rules about how methods work in Java, and the method always have to have a name. Well, that makes sense, I suppose. So I'll call it add numbers. And it has to have a return type. So what's my method going to return? I don't really know. I think it's probably not going to return anything. I might change my mind later, but I will let its return type to be void. But the point of our story here is that a method must return something, either a primitive or object type, or void. Those are your three choices. Pick one and move on with your life. So here we'll make a comment. We'll say, now you see the nice thing about this digital whiteboard is I'm lecturing, but I'm also writing down what I'm saying. So you have access to this, right? You have the link. So at any point you're free to, when it's time for exam studying or something, you can just jump into here and study all this stuff. And I think it's kind of nice to do this rather than a PowerPoint, because PowerPoint is good for some things. It's not really good for programming because, you know, things get buried and here everything, you can just find it connected to other stuff. So method must have a name. And methods must have return type. So let's see what that looks like. Oh, and methods, actually, they don't need to have an implementation. You could have a method that doesn't do anything, right? It doesn't have an implementation, but most practical methods in practice, for the most part, I would say would probably have to have some implementation. They'd have to do something. So here I have a return type, which is void. So I'm saying it's not returning anything as far as I can tell right now. I have a name, and I also have to have a parametric signature. I have to have some parameters that I'm providing to the method. Even if it's 0 parameters, I still have to put the round bracket. So we can make a note here that say methods must have arguments, parameters, provided in the form of round brackets, and the parameters must be type and name. So the parameters must have a type and a name. So in this case, I guess I should provide the first number that I want to start at and the last number that I want to go to. So here I'm going to say int, because one of my data types is integer, like that's a kind of a number, right? You remember from your math class, integer. So we'll say int start number, comma, int end number. So that's starting from 1 going to 100. And in this case, I want to sum them up. I want to add them. So I'm probably going to be returning an int value. So now I'll say my method return type is int. And now I have to provide a implementation of this method, which I do in curly brackets like this. Now, if I run this, I'm going to get an error message from the compiler, right? The compiler is Java C, Java compile for my JDK. So therefore, it's going to say, well, you promised you were going to return int, so I have to give it some return. If I say I'm going to return something, I have to return it. So here I'm going to say return 0, just to avoid getting the compiler error. Now let's go and compile our program, because we want, especially in the initial stages when we're learning, we want to do compiles pretty often, because that way if there's a mistake, we can quash it out right away. So therefore, let's make sure you save your program, your file. And go back to your command prompt. And I'm just going to compile again. So I'm going to type my up arrow key to repeat the previous commands. Java compile peanut.java. Oh, I have an error on line 12. Why? Class interface or enum expected. Oh, you know what happened here? Now, once again, if I was using Eclipse, Eclipse would have automatically fixed this for me. So it's actually pretty good that I'm not using a fancy editor because I don't want the editor to kind of do too much work, because that way it's kind of stopping me from learning stuff. Now, another important factor here is that your implementation must be contained in curly brackets. So here, I'm opening this bracket and I'm closing it here because that was my initial program. So that is the total of my program. That's all. That's it. But you see here, I added this stuff below. It's outside of the program, so that's not going to work. So I need to go and fix that. I need to move this stuff inside those curly brackets, so it's a part of my class called Peanut. So I have one method, which is called public static void main, and I have another method now, which is called add numbers. So let's move that up there. By the way, Java does not care about indentation, right? How far from the left margin you push things in. Some of you which may have a background in Python, for example, you know that with Python, if you don't have proper indentation, Python will throw a hissy fit and it will start giving you compilers and stuff. But here in Java and most languages, they don't really care about that. So therefore, that's probably okay, I think. Let's save it. And let's run again. And I hope you guys are following along with me. I hope so. It will be massively faster learner because I'm going very slow, right? I hope everybody has their JDK up now. So let's say Java C Peanut again. No errors this time. Now let's actually try running it with Java Peanut. It's not returning anything because we don't have any output, but it's not giving any error messages. All right, now we have another problem. Well, first of all, we have to give an implementation of this method, right? We haven't done that yet. But how is this method going to run? Right? So suppose we put something here in our add numbers. We can say system.out.println. And system.out.println is how you make a print statement to the screen. But if I compile and run this, nothing is happening. We're not seeing the word hello. Why? Because this method is not being invoked. This method is not being gathered into the flow of execution. Why? Because everything that runs in a Java program starts from public static void main. Public static void main is like kicking the soccer ball, and everything you want to run in your code must be launched from within public static void main. That is the controller of the program. So therefore, if I want to run add numbers, I have to reference it here, and I have to give it some parameters. So let's do that. Is that going to work? Well, let's compile it and find out. Oh, by the way, every line has to have a semicolon at the end of it. So save. And let's compile and run. I have an error, non-static method. Now, Java does have a reputation for being a little bit complicated, and I've been trying to spare you from the complexity so far, but I can't really do that forever. Now we have to deal with some complexity. So there is two kinds of members. And by the way, over here, when we said two kinds of things we can put in a Java class, we'll say two members, two kinds of members, because the stuff we put in a class is called a member. So data fields are members and methods are members. And attributes of members, well, members can have a nature which is either static or instance. And that is complicated, so I'm going to do my best this class and next class. It'll take a few times of explaining it, but then soon everybody will understand. There are two natures, right? Two kinds of nature that a member can have. It can be static or it can be instance. Yeah, I know you're sitting there right now going, Jesus, Peter, that's confusing. Well, maybe a little bit, but we'll get you through it. Don't worry. And I'm not going to explain these right now. I'm going to come back before we're done, maybe in 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to show you some code examples first, then I'm going to come back and explain them. And members can also have visibility. So in addition to this thing of being static or instance, another thing they can have is as follows. So there's actually four kinds of visibility. We can have default, protected, private, and public. Right, so I'm not going to talk too much in detail about this in our introductory class. However, just keep your eye on that and bear in mind there is some stuff we need to do between static and instance and visibility. There's a couple of different things we're going to need to take care of in our code. So for right now, let's just go and get our program working. Then we'll take a break. Then we'll come back and understand why it is this way. So our error message here from our runtime was non-static. Method cannot be referenced from a static context. So you see what's going on over here? So this is static. Why? because the Java language specification says that the one public class which you have in a Java application, right? You can have as many classes as you want. You can have 16 million classes, but you can only have one public class. And that public class must have one and only one and exactly one public static void main method. It has to look exactly like that, and it has to be static. Now here I have something called add numbers, and add numbers is not referenced as being static. Therefore, by default, it is instance. What's the difference between instance and static? I promise I'll tell you within the next 30 minutes, but not right now, because there's some other stuff I want to talk about first. So we have a instance method, and we know it's an instance method because we have not specified it as being static. See up there, that was static. So if this is not static, it must therefore be instance. So, well, there is several ways you can get around this problem. For right now, just in the interest of making our code work, I'm going to make add numbers to be static. Sometimes that may not be a practical solution, but it is here. All right, let's add this to our mind map. Right, so here I'm going to say static int add numbers. All right, let's go and compile that and see what happens. No errors. Let's run it. Now it's working and it's outputting this message of hello. All right, guys and ladies, let's take a little break. It is 3:50. Let's give it a break till 4:10. I think we're going till 5 o'clock today, right? So then we'll come back and we'll finish up getting our simple Java program running. So we're now on break until 4:10. All right, guys, we're going to pick it up again in 3 minutes. It's 4:07. We'll get started at 4:10. All right, guys, I actually have a video here. I was trying to remember it, and then I just remembered where it was. So this is a video if you need more guidance on getting JDK running on your computer. Of course, you're always welcome to ask me as well, but if you want to watch this video, here it is. So I'm going to post all of this stuff up here so you have the stuff to work on. Video on setting up your Java environment. That means your JDK. 202 views and only 3 likes. Ouch. Why don't people like my stuff more? That hurts me. All right, guys, just one more thing I want to kick in, and then we're going to go back to our coding exercise. I have some nice books on Java programming I'm going to share with you. The only problem is I can't remember exactly what the name of it is, but I'll remember that in a second. Audio level test. Hang on, I'll resume our programming activities in a minute. There's just one more thing I want to find here for you. All right, we're going to go over the course outline now because it's the first day and that's something we're supposed to do. There's another very good book I have. I just can't find it. So when I find it, I'll push it up there. The freak is it called? Oh, Java the Hard Way. That was it. I really want to get you this because I know you're going to spend the weekend reading it. So just a second now. Java the Hard Way. There we go. Okay, great. So now let's spend a couple of minutes going through the course outline and the evaluation timetable, and then we'll finish our Java program. I think today's class will probably go till about 6 o'clock or so. We'll probably go a little bit over, but I know you guys are anxious to learn Java, so I think you'll be happy to do that. All right, just going to go back to our Google Classroom page now. All right, guys and ladies, pay attention. So here's our, first of all, there's a document here called Academic Weeks. You probably got that from the college anyway, but for any of your courses, if they say like week 7 and you want to know what date that is on the calendar, you can go and check this. And in terms of the course outline, let's look through it. So this course provides an introduction to programming in Java. The course will provide focus on core programming concepts. As you've seen, we've already started doing that are universal to all modern programming languages. Students will learn to write programs using good algorithmic design, logic, data types, variables, control structures, right? We've started talking about that already, and functions or methods or reusable blocks of code. So all of the stuff we talk about is going to be written up in your PowerPoint. So that will be like a good kind of whiteboard for you to keep track of all of this stuff. The goal of this course is to provide a solid foundation for core programming skills that will allow you to further your learning in other environments, because pretty much everything in today's modern algorithm economy is going to be based around being able to program information systems. Now, it doesn't mention about databases here. I will give you a little bit of introduction to database as well, because we're going to be using databases for some of our Java programs. Now, here they mention a textbook. I've never seen this textbook. I don't know anything about it. However, I'm telling you, save your money. You don't need to buy any textbooks, because the books I've given you in particular, the best book I've encountered everywhere. And well, first of all, there's this free online textbook, which is Beginner's Book Java, so that's pretty good. But something I just uploaded to your Google Classroom is Learn Java the Hard Way, which, if you're looking for a good book on Java, that should probably be the one you focus on. Well, anyway, it's up there. I don't know what, oh, actually it's here. Hang on. For some reason, my system froze. It's coming back now. So if you're looking for a good textbook to further your knowledge, check any of these references I've put here. In particular, Yeah, learn Java the hard way. That's a main one I'm going to be using. And there's a video once again on setting up your Java environment, getting your JDK working and all that stuff. So you can go and watch that. Okay, let's go back to our course outline. So upon successful completion of the course, you'll be able to analyze programming problems and use pseudocode, as we call it, which is basically comments, to write algorithms for solving the problem, use logical operators, such as I've started to show you now, and evaluate expressions, describe the role of data types in computer programs and use variables in coding, understand and implement basic control structures like for loops, while loops, if-then statements, decision-making and repetition, test and debug programs. We'll be seeing how to use the debugger in Eclipse and apply the steps of the software development process to developing solutions to programming problems. Course content, Java overview and installation. We did that today. Writing, compiling, executing programs. Yep, we've done that. Debugging, we'll start that next week. Getting input and sending output to the terminal, which is the console, operators and program design, and using Boolean or logical expressions and selection statements. We'll see how to use various classes here, such as the math class, characters and strings, programming with loops, and working with methods, and working with arrays. So anyway, this course outline is kind of skimpy. It does not give a very good description of all the stuff we will be covering. However, it will be a very interesting and valuable course. So yeah, we're going to do a lot of good stuff here. Now, let's also look at our evaluation timetable, see what kinds of tests and assignments you're going to be having. Right, so week one, that's stuff we've been talking about, Java overview and installation. Next week, we'll get into using the debugger in Eclipse. We will have a lab next week, which will be worth 6% of your final grade. So therefore, make sure you're following along with this stuff. We will have quiz 1 on week 4, lab 2 on week 5. Assignment 1, which will actually start next week, will be worth 10% and will be due on week 6. Midterm exam will be week 7, worth 15%. Lab 3 will be on week 8. Lab 4 will be on week 10. Quiz 2 will be on week 11. Assignment 2 will be week 12. And then lab 5 will be week 13. Then we'll have the final exam on week 14. So any questions about that, let me know. That's going to be your evaluation timetable. Let me check back on the comments to see if I have any questions here. Not so far. All right, guys, we now have about another 30 minutes roughly. So let's go back and finish making our simple program work. All right, so follow along with me, right? I'm going slow. Put your fingers on the keyboard and try and get this stuff working. So we found out that a Java class, oh, actually, you know what? I made a video for you. I'm going to go and post the video up there as well. Yeah, this was at the beginning when I was showing you how to do the simple. I mean, it's the same thing that's in your other video on the simplest Java program, but maybe because it's something we did together in class, it'll kind of be more meaningful to you. So I'll upload that and post the link on your class journal. All right, so let's go back here. What do we get any messages in our compile window we need to pay attention to? I don't think so. It just said that it built. Whoops, that was not our compile window. Yeah, so we got the word hello to print out because we called add numbers from the main method, right? So the way it works is we have a public class, which must have public static void main, and then every other method we want to run must be called from public static void main. Now we found out that that's static, so we needed to make that static as well to satisfy the requirements of static and instance. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of basic knowledge here to kind of help you in terms of understanding this. And quiz one is not that far away. It's in a couple of weeks, so probably be a good idea to zone in and start paying attention to this. So static and instance, members. So one of the things that we found out now is Java works with classes and we create objects from classes, right? I know it's a lot of new information, but we got to learn this stuff. So let's get started. Well, first of all, I'm going to put the link to that video we made in class. Hang on. All right, so here's some basic concepts now. You're going to need these for the midterm, so pay attention. We write Java code, right? We organize a Java program. We write Java programs with classes. What's a class? That's going to be an exam question. A class is a container to put code into. A class is a box. It's a container to put code into. And classes consist of two members, two types of members, data and methods. All right, so now we create objects from classes, and if a member, I'll go over this more next week. I mean, this is a bit complicated, but we probably need to talk about a bunch of this stuff a few times. We create objects from classes, and those are called instances of the class. So a static member, method, or data field has the same value for all instances of that class. An instance member, each object, each instance, each object can have its own value for that instance. All right, so that's most of the stuff I wanted to talk about today. I'm just setting the stage now to do more programming next week as well. Now, members can also have visibility modifiers. Now, there's three aspects of object-oriented programming, and I think students are probably taught about this at an earlier level because everybody always knows all this stuff. So the three elements of object-oriented programming paradigm. When we're in class together, we'll make it a class discussion and you can tell me your ideas. But for right now, to just move things along, I'll say what they are. So we have encapsulation. And what that means exactly, we'll talk about later. We have abstraction. And we have polymorphism. And once again, I'm not teaching this because we're running out of time. I'm just introducing it to build on top of next week. Now, visibility modifiers come out of encapsulation, right? So if we make members private, for example, that means that no object outside of the parent object can access data members, right? So visibility modifiers are there to enforce or to respect the object-oriented concept of encapsulation. If we make something private, then it's invisible and it can't be changed from outside. And I know I'm not really doing a completely good job of doing that, of describing it, but I think for day one, we've kind of done enough work. Now we're getting near the end. What I'm going to do right now is have one more activity, which is an attendance quiz to find out who's here, because I will pass students who don't get a great mark on the tests, but if somebody is missing too many classes or they're not showing respect for the class, well, I'm going to fail them, right? So we need to know who's here. So I'm going to kick out the link, and then when the quiz is done, you can take off. We will review the results of our attendance quiz next week. Where did I put my, oh, there it is. It's only 3 questions. It'll just take a couple of minutes anyway. We'll add on to it later. All right, guys, there's your attendance quiz link. Quiz on it. It does not count for marks, right? It's not something that's going to affect your mark, but it does let me know that you're here. And it also lets you and me know how well you're grasping these concepts. So I can sort of adjust if necessary how much emphasis I'm putting on things. So let's see how people are making out. Nobody is writing my quiz yet. Maybe nobody is here and I'm talking to myself. That would be depressing. That would make me sad.
No, sir, I am writing your
Oh, very good. Yeah,
test.
sometimes it takes, thank you. Sometimes it takes a couple of seconds to catch up. All right, that's fine. So just do your best. Just think about the kinds of things we've talked about. Now I think I believe this class, I think being a level 1 class, I'm actually not sure. I don't want to say anything about online or in person without checking because the office keeps changing the stuff. But one way or another, whether we stay online or whatever we do, we'll keep going forward and we'll kind of learn a lot of cool stuff before we're done. Good. I have Seminon, so I have one student here at least. That's good. I have 12 students here. Good. So I know at least these 12 students will get a passing mark. The other ones, probably I'm going to fail them, I think. Oh, shoot, my mic is open. I shouldn't have said that out loud. Forget what you just heard. All right, Amanpreet, once you're finished up, you can take off, right? You can log off. Now, don't pay any attention to this mark number because obviously these are not auto-graded questions. I need to manually mark them. We will review these questions next week, but it's 10 to 5. So once you're done, you can just go and relax, and we'll see you next week. I'll post the class recording within a couple of hours when it's ready, when it's finished assembling. And if you want to review any of the stuff we did, one way would be to watch the video.